welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle. Recently, I watched a really great video from Nicole at A Day of Small Things, which is a newer channel to me, but I love her videos. She is so thoughtful about the books that she's talking about, and I absolutely love, she will have quotes that she talks about from the books on her screen. I just love it. I love that in-depth analysis of the books that she reads. I find it fascinating. So she recently did a video called 2022 Year-End Book Awards. So this is the time of year when everybody is putting out videos about the best books of 2022, their least favorites, all of those kind of videos are coming out. And so I immediately noticed Nicole's, because she was doing something just a little bit different, and I really loved this idea. She created 15 award categories for her reading year, and what I loved about this is that they allow me to talk about some things that wouldn't normally be part of a best of video from my reading year from 2022. So I immediately thought to myself, this is something that I have to do. Like Nicole, I am going to split this into two parts because there are 15 categories for the book awards, and they are favorite children's story, favorite short story, favorite world literature, most cinematic, favorite supporting character, best teacher, favorite audiobook, favorite screen adaptation, most comforting, favorite play, favorite nonfiction, favorite protagonist, favorite novel, favorite author, and then finally the book of the year. I loved these categories so much, so I am going to copy Nicole and make this video two parts. So in part one, I'm going to tell you the awards for favorite children's story, favorite short story, favorite world literature, most cinematic, favorite supporting character, best teacher, and favorite audio book. Now, I may include runners up. I was strict with myself, though. I have a really hard time with favorites, but I was strict with myself. So there may be some runner-ups, but I tried to have a clear winner for each category. There are times when I just couldn't do it, so there will be ties. But for each category, there may be runners-up, and there will definitely be the winner of that category. So let's just dive right in. I'm really excited about this. So the first award category for the year-end book awards here on Too Fond of Books is favorite children's story. So for the runner-up, I had to include the BabyLit primers by Jennifer Adams that I discovered. These books are fantastic. I just loved this idea of taking classic literature and turning it into a baby board book. The illustrations are fantastic, and I just love the clear love of literature that comes out in what type of primer is chosen for each book and for each classic. And my favorites are specifically Anne of Green Gables, a Places primer, Wuthering Heights, a weather primer, Sherlock Holmes in The Hound of the Baskervilles, a sound primer, Dracula, a counting primer, A Midsummer Night's Dream, a fairies primer, Jane Eyre, a counting primer, A Christmas Carol, a colors primer, Romeo and Juliet, a counting primer, Sense and Sensibility, an opposites primer. So definitely in the runner-up category is the BabyLit primers by Jennifer Adams. Now, the winners, I had to do a tie because I could not choose between the two, but A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond. This book was just delightful. It was a delight. I loved Paddington. I loved the family that adopted him. The scrapes that he gets himself into, it was just such a delight. And then it is tied with A Guinea Pig, Pride and Prejudice by Alex Goodwin. This book is seriously the most adorable thing I have ever seen. It is so cute. So there are real hamsters, and there's a page of them and their names, so you know who they are. And then they are dressed in costumes that have been specifically designed for them, to kind of do a very basic retelling of the story of Pride and Prejudice. It is just so adorable. It is so adorable. So there you have it. There are my favorite children's stories awards for 2022. My favorite short story. This one I have two runners up, The Canterville Ghost and Lord Arthur Saville's Crime. Both of these are by Oscar Wilde. I really enjoyed reading Oscar Wilde's short stories this past year. I buddy read them with Donna, and it was so fun, and I loved talking about them with her. But my absolute favorites were The Canterville Ghost from 1887. This is a story about an American family who moved to a castle haunted by the ghost of a dead English nobleman who killed his wife and was then walled in and starved to death by his wife's brothers. So it sounds really serious and spooky as a ghost story, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious. I really, really enjoyed that one. And then Lord Arthur Saville's Crime, also from 1887. At a party thrown by Lady Windermere, the story's title character, Lord Arthur Saville is introduced to Mr. Septimus R. Podgers, a chiromantist or a palm reader. Podgers reads his palm and recoils when he sees what is written there, and is only reluctantly reveals the truth to the Lord Arthur that he is destined to be a murderer. Lord Arthur wants to marry, but believes that he cannot in all good conscience do so with his impending fate hanging over him. So he decides the only thing for it is to commit the murder first before marrying his sweetheart, Saville Merton. This was such a great story with themes of fate and destiny and choice and free will. It was a fabulous short story and definitely worthy of being in the runner-up category. The winner, I again have a tie for the winner because I just could not choose. And so the tie is between A Christmas Tragedy by Agatha Christie from 1966 and Dear Mr. Editor by Christianna Brand from 1958. A Christmas Tragedy is a Miss Marple short story, and it is from the 13 Problems. No, the Tuesday, I think it's both titles, the 13 Problems and the Tuesday Murder Club, maybe. So she's at the Bantries. Miss Marple is asked to tell a murder mystery. She recounts the time she could tell from a man's behavior that he was planning to kill his wife. This was classic Christie, with twists that I did not see coming, and all of it in a short story. It was perfection. It was how you write a mystery short story. It was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. Dear Mr. Editor by Christianna Brand. I've been reading more Christianna Brand this year and discovering that I really enjoy her as a mystery writer. This short story is written in the form of 2 letters. Dear Mr. Editor showcases Christianna Brand's skill in crafting inventive plots with a limited cast of characters. In this story, a woman receives a letter from an editor requesting a submission for an anthology of horror stories. Keen to provide an original piece, she plans to kill her sister for the perfect plot. This short story, wow. Wow, it packed a punch. It was so good. It was so good. I loved it. Okay, moving on. Favorite world literature. Now this could be translated works that were read or just books that were set in a different country from your own. So the runner-up for this one, I had to include A Song of Comfortable Chairs by Alexandre McCall Smith. This is the latest in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series, which is set in Botswana. Reading a book in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series restores my faith in humanity. I love this series so much. I am always so grateful to be able to sink comfortably back into the world of Precious Remotsway. A Song of Comfortable Chairs is the 23rd book in a series that I hope never ends. I love the gentle tone of this series. The characters aren't perfect, but they are constantly striving to be better. And in this one, I just thought it was perfectly paced. There were 2 pro bono cases in this one, and I also loved seeing more of Charlie. Charlie is a character that's been in there from the beginning. He started as an apprentice at Speedy Motors, where Precious's husband works, and we've seen, you know, Charlie grow, but not really grow up. And so what I loved in this book is that we got to see more of him, and we got to see his vulnerability and some growth from him, which I really, really did enjoy. But the clear winner for favorite world literature had to be The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Wow. This was translated from the French, and unfortunately I don't know who translated the edition that I have, but I loved this book. I read it as a group read over the summer. We took 2.5 months to read it, and it was just amazing. It was just amazing. Like, it was a massive, massive book, but I was never bored. The story in it was unbelievable. The themes were fantastic. The characters were amazing. Just what a fantastic reading experience, and I loved being able to talk about it with the other ladies in our reading group, and I just, yeah, it was amazing, and I want to read it again. So that's the clear winner for favorite world literature. Most cinematic. This is a category for stories that I would love to see on screen. So this one was really fun to think about, because it's not something that I actually think about very often when I'm reading a book, but I had 2 runners up and then a winner. So my first runner up is The Vanished Days by Susanna Kearsley. In the autumn of 1707, old enemies from the Highlands to the borders are finding common ground as they join to protest the new union with England. At the same time, the French are preparing to launch an invasion to bring the young exiled Jacobite king back to Scotland to reclaim his throne. And in Edinburgh, the streets are filled with discontent and anger. And danger. Queen Anne's commissioners seeking to calm the situation have begun paying out money sent up from London to settle the losses and wages owed to those Scots who took part in the disastrous Darien expedition 8 years earlier. An ill-fated venture that left Scotland all but bankrupt. When the young widow of a Darien sailor comes forward to collect her husband's wages, her claim is challenged. One of the men assigned to investigate has only days to decide if she's honest or if his own feelings are blinding him to the truth. So I think one of the reasons why I think this would be fantastic on screen is just the time period, that it is set in Scotland in the 1700s. But then it goes back in time and you get the story of the history of this woman. And I just think it would be fantastic to see on screen. It goes back to the 1680s. So the historical setting, first of all, just makes, I think it would be really great on screen. The dual timeline, although they are both in history, makes it interesting visually, I think. I think it just could be really beautiful on screen. And then the other runner-up is The Honjin Murders by Seishi Yokomizo. Sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. This is a mystery that was written, I believe, in the 80s. But actually, there's a chance that this one was written in the 40s. I should have checked that. Anyways, the story. In the winter of 1937, the village of Yokomizo is abuzz with excitement over the forthcoming wedding of a son of a grand family. But amid the gossip over the approaching festivities, there is also a worrying rumor. It seems a sinister, masked man has been asking questions around the village. Then, on the night of the wedding, the household that where the wedding is happening are woken by a terrible scream, followed by the sound of eerie music. Death has come to Yokomizo, leaving no trace but a bloody samurai sword thrust into the pristine snow outside the house. Soon, amateur detective Kosuke Kindachi is on the scene to investigate what will become a legendary murder case. But can this scruffy sleuth solve a seemingly impossible crime? I just think that this is a story that would be visually very striking. This idea of everybody being woken by a scream and then the sound of music, that being able to see the bloody samurai sword thrust into the snow. I just think there's a lot about this that would come alive on screen. I just think that it would be for someone who is not from Japan and doesn't understand all of the history, and even potentially I'm not able to visualize what things may look like, being able to see it on screen would really enhance my enjoyment of that mystery. So I think that that's a definite runner-up for this category. But the winner for the most cinematic book that I read last year is Murder in Old Bombay by Nev March. Now, granted, it was a reread, but I can't help myself. I just think that this would be fantastic on screen. This is a story that takes place in 1892 in Bombay, in India. And the reason I think that this wins for most cinematic is because this is a story that has adventure, mystery, and romance. And I just think that it would look fantastic on screen. Okay, favorite supporting character. I have two runners-up and then a clear winner. First of all is Angela from Listen to Me by Tess Gerritsen. So the Listen to Me is a book in the Rizzoli and Isles series. Jane Rizzoli is a detective in Boston, and Dr. Moore Isles is the medical examiner. Angela is a character who's been in here throughout the entire series. She's Jane's mom. But this book in particular, we got chapters from the first person perspective of Angela, and the part that she played in this particular book, it was so good. She was just so concerned about her neighbors, but she could not get her daughter or anyone else to take her seriously, to take her concerns seriously. I just thought she was such a great character in this book in particular. I've enjoyed her throughout the series, but particularly in this book. And then secondly, for a runner-up is Mrs. Finch from Poor Miss Finch by Wilkie Collins. I read this as a buddy read with Miriam from Miriam Elizabeth Reads, and Mrs. Finch is the mom in the story. She's married to the vicar, and she was just hilarious as a supporting character. She just constantly had a baby on her arm. She constantly had like a handkerchief and a book, and she was constantly losing one of them. She didn't know where she put down the baby, or she didn't know where she put down the book or the handkerchief. Like, and she was never fully dressed, and like she was just so funny. They had a lot of children, and she was just worn out, and I just thought she deserves a runner-up award for Best Supporting Character because she was just very amusing. But the clear winner for Best Supporting Character is Florence Armstrong. She is lady's maid to Lady Hardcastle and an expert in martial arts. So she is from the Lady Hardcastle mystery series written by T.E. Kinsey. This is a historical mystery series set in like the first one. I think the first one starts in 1908. The first one's called A Quiet Life in the Country. I love her as a supporting character because she knows who she is. She is comfortable in both worlds. She is fully comfortable in her world of the servant class, but she is also equally comfortable in the world of the upper class. There's been books in the series where she's been told to come into the room with everybody else at, say, at a house party and sit down and talk with them, and she does. And she's very comfortable in both worlds. And I love that she can handle herself in tricky situations. She's a tough girl, and I love that. So Florence Armstrong definitely wins for Best Supporting Character. The next category is Best Teacher. This is the book that taught you the most, and this was hard for me to narrow down, but the runner-up in this category is Pride and Prejudice, the annotated edition. I read this in July for Jane Austen July, and I learned so much from the annotations that were included with this story. It was a reread for me of the story, but I learned so much from the annotations about the time period and about the story itself. It was a great read, and it makes me now want to reread all of Jane Austen with the annotated editions. The winner, however, for Best Teacher was Shakespeare of London by Marcette Chute. Oh no, this was a tie as well. Shakespeare of London by Marcette Chute and The Genius of Jane Austen by Paula Byrne. Shakespeare of London was a book that was written in the 40s, 1947, I think. And I just learned so much from the author about Shakespeare during his time in London. I learned so much about how the theaters worked at that time period and what it was like to write a play, to put on a play. I really loved that book, and I learned so much. The Genius of Jane Austen, what was the subtitle of that one? Her Love of Theater and Why She Works in Hollywood by Paula Byrne. I learned so much. So the reason I picked this book up is because it talks about the play that they put on in Mansfield Park called Lover's Vows. But The Genius of Jane Austen went through and talked about her own love of the theater and how the plays that she saw influenced her own work. It was really fascinating. I really enjoyed that read, and I learned a lot. Okay, last category for part one is favorite audiobook. Now this is based not on the story, but because it's the audiobook, you need to base it on the narrator's performance and the listening experience. Now I don't really listen to a ton of audiobooks, but the clear winner for this category was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, narrated by Dan Stevens. He did such a good job. He did such a good job with this, differentiating between the characters, but really laying into the suspense and the buildup of tension in this story. I thought he did a great job, and so there was no question that that was going to be the winner for my favorite audiobook of 2022. So there you have it. That is part one of my year-end book awards. Stay tuned for part two, which is coming very, very soon. I actually think that I'm going to post it immediately following this one. So let me know in the comment section down below if maybe you're considering doing this video yourself, because I just think it's so much fun. Also, if you are not a booktuber, I would love to know what would be the most cinematic book that you read in 2022. The book that you would love to see on screen. I would love to know in the comment section, and I will see you for part two very soon. Bye.